My name is Opal Taylor. I'm 32, and I measure time in the language of wood, how long it takes walnut to breathe, how maple sings under a hand plane, how oak forgives a second try. I don't have a storefront. I have a converted garage I spent $35,000 turning into a professional workshop with dust collection, reinforced electrical, insulation, and a security system that hums like a lullaby when I lock up at night. Another $50,000 lives in my tools: track saws, a jointer that purrs, a bandsaw that could shave a whisper from a beam. This isn't a hobby, it's my name on every seam. On the day everything changed, my mother, Linda Taylor, arrived in ballet flats and a realtor's smile, the kind that says a deal has already been made. My boyfriend Caleb Hart was setting out coffee in the kitchen. I was in the shop, chalk lining a panel, chalk dust floating like winter breath. Mom rarely comes in here. She hates the smell, calls it barn air. She stepped over an extension cord as if she'd always belonged. "You know, Opal," she said, palms sweeping the ceiling, "this would make the perfect little apartment." I laughed. I shouldn't have. The laugh was bravado and sawdust, and it died in my throat when I saw her eyes. She wasn't brainstorming. She was announcing. "Mom," I said, "my table saw lives where your bed would go." She smiled as if I'd confirmed her point. "Bed would go where that contraption is. You can move it to the basement. Plenty of people work down there. Your hobby doesn't need all this." Hobby. The word landed like a hammer on glass. I slid my hand along the maple, trying to keep from shaking. "This pays our mortgage." Caleb stepped into the doorway, reading the weather in our faces. "We can sit and talk through options," he said, gentle as always. He set a mug near my clamps. "There might be a way to—" "There is a way," Mom cut in. "Family comes first." The way she said family told me there would be no vote. We sat at the kitchen table with the bad sunlight that makes every conversation feel like a deposition. I showed her invoices, contracts, the calendar full of deadlines stacked into next year. She waved at the pages as if shooing a fly. "You're creative. You'll figure it out." "Figure out turning a professional shop into a flooded basement?" I asked. "Every spring, Mom. Low ceilings, no ventilation." She took my hand, warm and iron. "You'll make sacrifices for the people you love. I made them for you. I was there for every school event, every scraped knee, the tally of debts." My chest tightened. "We've always kept score in this house. We just never agreed on the rules." Caleb tried diplomacy. "What if we help you find a place nearby? Same neighborhood even. We can visit every day. We can—" Her face went winter cold. "I see. You don't want me around." Her voice thickened with a practiced tremble. "After everything I've done for you, Opal, this is how you treat me." The room tilted. I wanted to say, "You're healthy, you have a fully paid-off 2-bedroom condo, and you cruise twice a year." Out loud, I said, "This isn't about love, it's about space. About the work that keeps me afloat." She pushed back from the table, the chair legs screeching like a verdict. "There's nothing to think about. 6 months, we'll do French doors where that loading dock is. Bathroom can tuck where your lumber shelves are. Charming." She tasted the word charming like a realtor tastes commission. After she left, the house felt strangely smaller, as if her assumption had already stolen square footage. Caleb put his palm on my back the way he does when words won't help. "We'll set boundaries," he said. "We'll be clear. She'll hear us." I wanted to believe him. I also knew the soundproofing in my shop had never been tested against my mother. For 3 days she texted inspiration links, mother-in-law suite conversions, barn to bungalow flips, pins from a board. She titled Opal and Caleb's Guest House. Comments chimed underneath from cousins and church friends. "So excited for you, Linda. Family is everything." As if the decision had already happened. I even saw a heart emoji from Lena, Caleb's ex, who somehow still occupies the back row of our lives like an usher who won't sit down. "So happy for you all," she wrote. Harmless, probably. But I felt it anyway, the petty sting of spectatorship. We invited Mom to dinner on Sunday. I printed my financials. I made real slides, bullet points about revenue, lead times, replacement costs. I practiced. This is my livelihood. Boundaries are love with a spine. She didn't let me finish the first slide. "We are not business partners," she said, smiling like a porcelain saint. "We are family." "It's both," I said, "because without this, there's no roof for anyone to be close under." She glanced at Caleb, So you'll spend on a new building in the yard, but you won't use this space for your mother? That says a lot. I counted 5 heartbeats so I wouldn't say something I couldn't sand smooth later. I won't lose my business to build you a fantasy. The word fantasy set something off. She stood, cheeks flushed. I'll give you space to come to the right decision. The right decision arrived Wednesday as a contractor measuring my workbench. I came back from delivering a coffee table to find my workshop door open and a white pickup with Richard Simmons' garage conversions stenciled on the side. Richard, polite and uncomfortable, held a clipboard. My mother floated near the miter saw like she owned the lease on air. Out, I said to Richard, keeping my voice calm. This is an active shop with live contracts and dangerous equipment. You're not authorized to be here. He nodded, eyes apologetic. Ma'am, your mother. My mother doesn't own my shop. Opal, Mom cooed. We're just getting quotes. My gaze drifted to the lumber rack, except it wasn't a rack anymore. The middle bay yawned like a missing tooth. Black walnut, months of curing, planned for a dining set already paid for, was simply not there. Where is my walnut? Each word cut. She brightened, relief in her eyes as though I'd finally asked the right question. I donated it. The high school wood shop was thrilled. You'll be in the basement soon. You won't need all that. Something in me cracked. 20 years of picking boards with my fingertips, learning grain like scripture, gone with a phone call she framed as charity. Get out, I told Richard again, and he did. I turned to my mother. You stole from my clients. It's just wood. She had the gall to look wounded. You're being dramatic. I watched her lips form dramatic and saw the future unspool. Calls to my clients to keep them informed, a Facebook saga about her journey to be closer to family, comments from relatives who only ever see Act 3. That night, Caleb and I changed the locks on the shop. I emailed my clients to ignore any calls about schedule changes that didn't come from me. Then I opened my business inbox and learned I was already late. 3 messages asking whether the move to the basement would delay deliveries. My mother had been calling people. 1 client canceled on the spot. Too unstable, they said. They needed reliability more than custom joinery. Caleb found the Pinterest board, now swollen to hundreds of pins, subway tile, milk glass lamps, cozy mother's nook captions. We'll set a firm boundary tomorrow, he said. Written, lawyer, clear. It was a good plan. But when family wants a boundary, they ask for a fence. When my mother wants a boundary, she orders a bulldozer. On Monday, code enforcement walked my shop. A concerned neighbor had filed a complaint about noise and commercial traffic. The inspector found everything in order, but said repeated complaints trigger investigations. He said, kindly, almost fatherly, whatever family stuff is happening, find a way to de-escalate. I texted my mother, stop, do not come to my property again, do not contact my clients. She called instead. I'm concerned about the neighborhood, honey, all those delivery trucks. Once you're in the basement, it will be quieter for everyone. You're trying to destroy my business. Don't be dramatic. There it was again. Change is hard. The sooner you accept it, the easier this will be. The next morning, I woke to lumber, drywall, and insulation stacked in my driveway. A note was taped to my workshop door in a looping hand I used to love. I've paid for materials. Richard starts Monday. I've taken time off to oversee. Love, Mom. I stood there in the early light, the shop key biting my palm, and realized something. I should have learned a decade ago. Some people don't hear no. They only hear how soon. I heard myself say it out loud, to no one and to everyone. Not here, not anymore. The dust collector hummed awake when I flipped the breaker and the sound steadied me. I would need that steadiness, because what was coming next wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a siege. The first siege came with smiles. By Wednesday, Mom was on Facebook again, this time posting pictures of her new home project, tagging me and Caleb in every post. One photo was taken right in front of my workshop with the caption, "Exciting changes ahead. Grateful my daughter Opal is opening her heart and her home. Family forever." The comments section was a nightmare. A mother's love is unmatched. You're so lucky, Linda. Opal's such a good girl. Even Lena, Caleb's ex, left a comment with a string of heart emojis and the words, "So wholesome. Love this." I wanted to throw my phone into the planer. Caleb tried to calm me. She's just performing. People like her don't know how to exist without an audience. But it wasn't just performance. It was narrative control, and I could already feel her story tightening around me like shrink wrap. The next blow came through my inbox. 3 more clients canceled, each message polite but cold. They'd heard I was moving my operation and didn't want to risk production delays. I knew exactly who they'd heard it from. When I confronted my mother that evening, she sounded genuinely offended. Opal, you're being paranoid. I only told them you were transitioning your workspace. Being transparent builds trust. Mom, this isn't transparency, it's sabotage. You made me sound unreliable. Well, she sighed, you are being unreliable with your promises to family. It took everything in me not to scream. Caleb squeezed my shoulder, silently begging me not to lose it. She wasn't finished. Besides, I've already spoken with a few of your cousins. They're thrilled for me. Everyone agrees it's such a beautiful idea, me being close by. You'll have help when you start having kids. We're not even, I started, but she talked right over me. Her voice grew syrupy. You work so hard, sweetheart. You deserve to have someone around to take care of you. You don't need to do everything yourself. That was the cruelest part, the way she twisted her control into care. Later that night, Caleb found her Pinterest board again. It had a new description. Can't wait to design my retirement suite. Opal and Caleb's guest house. Blessings abound. I stared at the phrase, my retirement suite, until it blurred. It wasn't about closeness anymore. It was about possession. The following week, I came home to find a new truck in the driveway. Code enforcement again. Another complaint. This time about chemical fumes and excessive noise. The inspector was polite but firm. Ms. Taylor, you're completely compliant, but someone's been calling in weekly complaints under different names. We're required to check. I didn't need to guess. That night I called my mother. Stop reporting me. You're harassing me, Mom. I'm concerned about your health, she replied smoothly. All those fumes. I just want to keep you safe. By destroying my business? Don't be dramatic, she said, the phrase now like a splinter under my skin. 2 days later came the delivery truck. I heard the reverse beeping before I saw it. A massive load of construction materials filling our driveway. Lumber, drywall, plumbing fixtures, even a mini fridge still wrapped in plastic. A note was taped to the door again. Richard starts Monday. I've paid for the materials myself. Love, Mom. Caleb stood beside me, jaw tight. She's trying to force your hand. I stared at the pile, $15,000 worth of someone else's dream pressing against my door. She won't stop, I whispered. Not until she wins. That weekend, I tried to rest. Instead, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives. Aunt Cheryl, Linda said you're making her sleep in her car? Tell me that's not true. Cousin Emily, you've changed, Opal. She only wants to be close to you. Even my old high school art teacher left a comment on Mom's new post about sacrifice and family love. The public had chosen its saint. Then Monday arrived. At 7 a.m., the sound of gravel crunching outside pulled me from bed. I ran out barefoot to find Richard Simmons again, this time with a full crew and tool belts. Mom stood in the middle of the driveway, dressed in a pressed blazer and kitten heels, as if this were a groundbreaking ceremony. Morning, sweetheart, she called. Don't make a scene. These nice men are here to work. I blocked the entrance to the workshop. They're not stepping 1 foot inside. This is my property. Her voice rose just enough for the neighbors to hear. Oh, please, Opal, don't start another episode. The word episode hung in the cold air. What did you just say? She turned to the contractor. My daughter's been under a lot of stress. We're getting her help. The way she said help made my stomach drop. Mrs. Patterson from next door peeked out her window. 2 other neighbors gathered on their porches. Mom's sobs began on cue, trembling, graceful, perfectly timed. She's just trying to deny me safe housing, she told them through her tears. I'm her mother. I only want to live close and be part of her life, but she's not well. Richard looked mortified. Ma'am, maybe we should come back later. He did, but the damage didn't. That day, half the neighborhood started looking at me like I was unhinged. The next week brought an even crueler blow. 3 of my biggest clients dropped me after Mom called them personally, saying I was taking a mental health break and wouldn't meet deadlines. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. I was protecting your reputation, she said calmly. Better they hear it from me than from rumors. You are the rumor, I hissed. Her reply was almost tender. You'll thank me someday. Then came the call from Adult Protective Services, a social worker's voice, firm but polite. We received a report that your mother is a vulnerable adult being denied safe housing. Caleb and I just stared at each other in disbelief. We spent the next 2 hours proving she owned a fully paid-off condo and a healthy savings account. The investigator was apologetic, but said the report would remain on file. It wasn't just family conflict anymore. It was character assassination. Systematic, deliberate, and public. 2 weeks later, she played her next card. I was out meeting a client when Caleb called me, his voice shaking. There are contractors here. They have paperwork, official permits, and they say your mom is a co-owner of the property. My knees almost gave out. What? They showed me forms with her name and signature. She's claiming partial ownership. It took 3 hours and a lawyer to untangle what she'd done. Years ago, when I bought the house, Mom had gifted me $30,000 to help with the down payment. What I didn't realize was that she'd quietly structured it as an investment, something she could later twist into ownership. Now, she was using that to claim legal rights to my property. When I confronted her, she didn't shout or cry. She just smiled, serene as ever. Oh, sweetheart, I told you, family takes care of family. You wouldn't even have this house without me. My lawyer warned it would take months to resolve. Until then, everything was frozen. My workshop, my contracts, even my insurance. He also said something that chilled me. Your mother's behavior fits a pattern I've seen before. She doesn't want your house. She wants control. I finally understood. She wasn't trying to move in. She was trying to move me out of my own life. By the time the legal paperwork landed on my lawyer's desk, I'd already stopped working in the shop. The place I once called my sanctuary, the hum of tools, the scent of cedar, had become a crime scene of memories. My hand shook every time I touched a chisel. Caleb and I stayed at a hotel that first week, just to breathe, but breathing didn't help much. I'd wake up thinking about sawdust patterns on the floor, the unfinished tables waiting like open wounds. Mom, meanwhile, was thriving. She posted daily updates on Facebook with pastel backgrounds and inspirational quotes. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's love stronger than pride. Family should lift each other, not lock each other out. The comments poured in. You're an angel, Linda, praying for Opal to see the light. My phone buzzed nonstop. Relatives, old neighbors, even clients sending confused messages. The story had officially flipped. I was the unstable daughter, and she was the heartbroken mother. The Adult Protective Services case was closed, but that didn't matter. The damage was social, not legal. I couldn't walk into the grocery store without hearing whispers. That's her, the one who kicked her mom out. When my lawyer called, I half expected him to say we'd lost, but instead his tone was cautious. Opal, I've reviewed the mortgage documents. Your mother's claim might hold for now. She has partial leverage, not ownership, but enough to muddy things. Meaning she can stall you, file injunctions, and force you into limbo until the court decides. You can't make structural changes or run your business in the meantime. So my livelihood, everything I'd built, was officially suspended. Caleb tried to stay positive. We'll get through this, once the court sees her pattern. But I didn't need the court to tell me what I already knew. My mother had always been the best at playing victim. She just finally found a stage big enough for her performance. 2 weeks later, she escalated again. At 6:30 a.m., I got a call from Caleb. You need to come home right now. When I pulled into the driveway, my stomach dropped. Construction trucks. Again. Different company this time. They had permits, stamped and signed, with her name on them. The foreman looked at me, confused. Ma'am, we were told Ms. Taylor authorized this renovation. She's listed as family co-owner. Mom appeared moments later, in workout gear and a sun hat. Good morning, sweetheart, she chirped, holding a clipboard. You're up early. Mom, what are you doing? Just getting started. She gestured toward the garage. Bedroom over there, kitchenette on that wall. Richard was too expensive, so I hired someone else. You'll thank me when it's done. I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. You're trespassing. I'm investing, she said sweetly. I paid for permits. Everything's official. My lawyer arrived within the hour and stopped the work, temporarily. But the legal chaos deepened. Because of the $30,000 clause she'd buried years ago, the city viewed her as having familial consent to modify the property. Until the claim was resolved, she technically had the right to request renovations. I felt my world split down the middle. Half of me wanted to scream. The other half wanted to vanish. That night in the hotel, Caleb wrapped his arms around me while I stared at the ceiling. She's going to drain us, I whispered. We'll fight, he said. I'm already tired of fighting. He kissed my forehead. Then rest. I'll keep fighting for now. The next morning, I got an email from my insurance company. We received a report alleging unsafe workshop practices on your property. Another complaint. Another investigation. They sent an inspector, again. And while he found no violations, he left with a clipboard full of notes. He looked at me sympathetically. "Off the record, Miss Taylor. Someone's trying to bury you in paper." He was right. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about exhausting me until I quit. And then came the final twist of the knife. A formal claim arrived in the mail, filed by my mother's lawyer. It stated that her $30,000 contribution was an investment in a multi-generational property entitling her to lifetime residence. Attached were old emails between us. "Thank you, Mom. You made my dream home possible. You'll always have a home with us." Out of context, it looked like a promise, a binding one. When I called her, my voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" Her tone was calm, almost pitying. "You said it yourself, Opal. Family takes care of family. I'm just holding you to your word." I wanted to hate her. But what I felt was worse. Grief. Grief for a relationship that died years ago, now finally being buried under drywall and deceit. The lawyer's office became our second home. He warned us it could take months. Legally, she doesn't own the property, but emotionally, she's weaponizing every gray area she can find. So we waited, and while we waited, our lives unraveled. My business collapsed. Clients left. Contracts died. Savings bled out in hotel bills and legal fees. Even Caleb's patience, once endless, began to fray. One night, as I sat on the hotel balcony staring at the parking lot lights, he said softly, "You can rebuild, Opal. You always do." But for the first time in my life, I didn't believe him. 6 weeks after the first complaint, my lawyer called again, his tone sharp, excited. "We found something. The notarization on your mother's document. It's dated 3 days after closing. It's invalid." I sat in stunned silence. "Meaning?" "Meaning her claim collapses. It's over, Opal. She committed technical fraud by backdating an investment after the purchase. If she pushes this, she risks criminal charges." I covered my face with both hands. For the first time in months, I felt air return to my lungs. Caleb exhaled beside me. "We win?" I nodded slowly. "We win." But as it turned out, victory doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like smoke after a fire. You're alive, but everything you loved is still gone. The victory came quietly, like the click of a lock after too many sleepless nights. Our lawyer handed me the official letter. Linda Taylor's claim withdrawn. Case dismissed. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like walking out of a storm to find your house already washed away. 6 months of lost clients. 6 months of whispers in town. 6 months of being painted as the villain in a story I never agreed to tell. My workshop, the one I'd built with calloused hands and midnight ambition, stood silent. Dust on the benches, rust on the clamps, scraps of half-finished tables like abandoned children waiting for their mother to come home. Mom hadn't spoken to me since her lawyer told her about the notary flaw, the one that made her claim impossible. According to my lawyer, she cried in his office, then left without a word. But online, she was louder than ever. Money changes people. Some children forget who taught them love. I forgive, but I'll never forget. Hundreds of reactions. Every one of them, a little hammer tapping on my ribs. Caleb tried to keep my spirits up. "It's done. She can't touch you anymore." I wanted to believe that, but her voice lived in my head like a leftover curse. I'd stand in the doorway of the workshop and hear her ghostly echo, "Don't be dramatic." She used that phrase like a leash. Every time I protested, every time I fought back, she'd yank it. Now that the leash was gone, all I could feel was the raw skin beneath it. Bills piled up, the hotel stay, the legal fees, lost income. We did the math one night at the hotel desk, Caleb's handwriting tight and angry. After everything, we'd burned through $47,000 in savings. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of the irony. Almost exactly what I'd spent building my workshop. The dream and the destruction had cost the same. Our lawyer suggested mediation or a restraining order if Mom tried to contact us again, but she didn't need to. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. She didn't have to. The silence itself was her punishment, one she knew would echo louder than any insult. Sometimes silence is just another way of saying you'll come back first. But I didn't. I couldn't. 2 months later, the bills forced our hand. I stood in front of the "for sale" sign with Caleb and the realtor. The workshop gleamed in the sunlight, freshly cleaned, hollow, and unfamiliar. "This space has potential," the realtor said. It used to have more than potential, I thought. It had purpose. When we accepted the developer's offer, Caleb held my hand so tight it almost hurt. He didn't say congratulations. He said, You did the right thing. But I didn't feel righteous, I felt amputated. Mom's final move came a week after the sale closed. A Facebook post, of course. A long paragraph in that same flowery tone. My heart is heavy, but proud. My daughter has chosen her path, and though it breaks me, I wish her peace. One day she'll understand that everything I did was for love. The comments followed like rain. You're a saint, Linda. Children can be so cruel. Praying she comes around. And just like that, she'd rewritten the ending again. In her story, I was the lost one. She was the mother who tried too hard. But that's the thing about storytellers like her. They never realize that their audience eventually moves on. A month later, I got an email from David Miller, one of my former clients, the one who'd canceled when the rumors started. He owned a custom furniture company 3 states away. Opal, I followed what happened. I know what kind of person you are. If you're willing to relocate, I'd love to have you as our lead craftswoman. I read it 3 times before showing Caleb. He smiled for the first time in weeks. Take it, please. You deserve to build again. It wasn't just a job offer, it was oxygen. We packed our things. Caleb applied for a transfer and got it. We left the hotel, left the state, left the ashes of that house where every wall had learned to whisper her name. On our last night before leaving, I drove past the workshop one more time. The developer had already placed stakes in the ground, orange flags marking where someone's future swimming pool would go. It stung, seeing my dream reduced to a blueprint for leisure. But maybe that was the point. That place had always been more battlefield than home. I turned off the engine and whispered, "Goodbye, Linda." Not to my mother, but to the version of myself who thought love meant obedience. The first morning in our new city didn't smell like sawdust. It smelled like coffee and rain on concrete. Strange, clean, unburdened. For the first time in years, I didn't wake to the hum of anxiety or the phantom vibration of my phone lighting up with my mother's name. We'd rented a small apartment near downtown. Nothing fancy, just enough space for a bed, 2 chairs, and a future. Caleb made pancakes in a too small kitchen and said, half joking, "Guess we traded chaos for quiet." I smiled, though part of me still didn't trust the quiet. But by that afternoon, everything shifted again. My new boss, David Miller, gave me a tour of the company's workshop. 5,000 square feet of skylights and order, like sunlight made into structure. He stopped beside a long workbench, slid his hand along a polished slab of oak, and said, "This will be yours. Make it sing." For a moment, I couldn't move. The light poured through the windows and caught in the wood grain like gold. I thought of my ruined shop back home, of how the sound of the dust collector had once steadied me when my mother's voice didn't. Now the silence here steadied me more. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild, plank by plank. At first, I doubted myself. Every cut felt cautious, like my hands had forgotten trust. But slowly, the rhythm returned. Measure, mark, breathe, cut. I carved new shapes, ones that didn't remind me of the past, but hinted at something sturdier. Forgiveness, maybe. Caleb flourished too. His transfer turned into a promotion. Every evening, he'd stop by the workshop and lean against the doorway with that small, proud smile. We didn't talk much about the old house anymore. We didn't need to. One day, I got a call from my Aunt Cheryl, the same aunt who'd once texted, "Tell me you're not making your mother sleep in her car." Her voice was hesitant now. "Opal, your mom, she's back in her condo. Cruises again, book clubs, the usual. She's been telling people you moved away to punish her." I exhaled through my nose. Of course she is. "She misses you," Aunt Cheryl added softly. "In her way." "I'm sure she does," I said, "but I don't miss who I was around her." A long silence followed. Then my aunt whispered, "You sound happier." I smiled. "I am." Months passed. The pain didn't disappear. It just changed shape. Sometimes I dream about the workshop, my old one, and wake up reaching for the familiar hum of tools that weren't there. But then I'd open my eyes to sunlight spilling across the new bench, to the smell of oak dust and calm air, and realize that I was still building, just not what she thought I'd build. One night, after finishing a dining table, my first full project at the new company, I stayed late to oil the surface. As I worked, I found myself whispering the same line I used to say before finishing any piece: "Make it last." The wood seemed to listen. When I finally stepped back, I realized what made this one different. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. Caleb showed up right as I turned off the lights. He slid his arm around my waist, watching the table glisten in the dim light. "It's beautiful," he murmured. It's stable, I said quietly. That's all I ever wanted. Sometimes I wonder if Mom ever understood what she really lost. Not the house, not the workshop, but me, the version of her daughter who used to believe love meant surrender. Her last message to me came months later. I forgive you, Opal. One day you'll see why I did what I did. I never replied. Forgiveness wasn't hers to give anymore. It was mine. And I gave it to myself. Now, when people ask what I make, I tell them I build dining tables. Sturdy ones, with legs that never wobble. But what I'm really building are boundaries. Oak strong and smooth to the touch. Tables where the next generation can sit without inheriting the chaos of mine. I used to think family comes first. Now I know. Family isn't who demands space in your life. It's who respects the space you need to breathe. My mother wanted to live closer to her family. In the end, she built walls instead. As for me, I'm building something else entirely. Not revenge, not restitution, just peace. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's refusing to be destroyed.